Yes.
We have a camera here. We have a camera there. Both are live streaming, so if you don't want to be seen, you need to put yourself behind someone a lot taller than you. There's a really tall bloke at the back. You can stand behind him. I'm sure he doesn't mind. Okay, so don't steal my microphone. Everyone is permitted to speak, so we might as well start like this. It's not so sunshiny today, but what a day this has been. What a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being a child. Right, welcome. Put your hands up like a primary school. If this is your first time at Speaker's Corner, I feel like I can talk with an American accent and say, well done. Good job. But yes, look, this is genuinely a muddy grassroots movement of women, predominantly, and some of you lovely penis havers, but women who have got to the point where they've finally, and welcome, had enough. And what we've had enough of is our speech being compelled, men getting celebrated. I don't know if you saw the rather rotund, very unathletic ice skater. Frankly, I think my dad could be better, and might even look better in that leotard. And we are celebrating the utter mediocrity of men as the most brave and stunning women, which is insane. It's absolutely insane, and nothing tells you that this is a men's rights movement more than celebrating the mediocrity of men. And often I think when girls transition, the reason they feel so euphoric and special when they take testosterone is, well, the mediocrity of men and the fact that so many men, and I'm sorry guys, but we all know men who are pretty useless at their jobs, not particularly attractive, who walk around this world as if there's something really super special. And conversely, we know lots of women who are really attractive, pretty wonderful, who totally undersell themselves. Yep. So, testosterone, what a wonderful drug. Certainly gets some people up in the morning. Sorry. I couldn't resist, I do apologise. Okay, so the idea of let women speak, it's quite simple. It really is to let women speak. And it's not permission at all. It's creating a space. Yeah. What we've done here, we were down there where they talk about different versions of the same God. We were down there, and what we found, because Speaker's Corner predominantly was made by men for men, that some of the laws, like no amplification, doesn't lend itself very well to many women's voices. Certainly not when women are feeling quite emotional. I mean, I'm quite lucky. I have a deep and meaningful voice. But there are a lot of women that really struggle projecting their voices. And so we've decided to come to this little place. And thanks to women in Nottingham, we now call it Let Women Speak. That's the whole event. And we're pretty global, I have to say. It's pretty magnificent. And what we get, I'm not a vet. But I know what a dog is. It's one of my many lines. So this is let women speak, and what we try to do when women are talking here is we try, if we're having conversations, just to go away a little bit, just because that sort of sound, especially if someone's quite nervous, can be really, really off-putting. And it doesn't create the sort of environment where women feel that they can talk, sometimes about really deeply personal things. But this is your opportunity. If you're first up, we might just ask you to keep it no more than sort of 5 minutes, preferably 3. And if you have one of those magic penises, can you please wait until women have spoken to speak at the end? And I say magic, I mean mediocre. So anyway, it's let women speak. This is the microphone that you require. So who would like to speak?
some of you will know me as After Women on Twitter. Probably about 5 people I already know, but anyway.
Speak up.
Now I'm Tricky V, so I'm on Art for Women on Twitter. Last year I did a thread about how this ideology has affected my own family and someone that I'm really, really close to, and how I found myself kind of on the periphery of the family for a long while. Thankfully now things have resolved in that they accept my views, but the person in question is still struggling.
The sound is not great. What?
Oh, no one wants to see that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so I have got skin in this game. I very much love my family member, and I am concerned now that they have had a diagnosis of gender dysphoria from a private clinic, that they now want to go on hormones, but they're still not quite sure what they are, and they admit that. So I come from a place of compassion and standing up for women's rights. So just after I wrote that thread, I was asked by LBC if I wanted to ask Keir Starmer a question. Some of you might have seen it go round. I think they rang me. I think I was the only TERF on their list that I'd rang in before. And I phoned in and I asked him if Eddie Izzard would count as a woman and would make a female shortlist. And the first thing that Keir said was something like, the first thing is we have to have compassion. I really think we need compassion, blah, 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 blah. And I wasn't allowed a rebuttal, because then they went to another caller. So this is my rebuttal. Sir Keir, I come from a place of compassion. I love my family member. I love them so much, and I said this in my thread, I love them enough to let them hate me a little bit. And it's really hard, but I'm the only one that isn't completely going along with it in my family. But they all agree with me, but they're so scared, and I can't because I've also got a goddaughter and a niece and other people I love. And we come from compassion for the women that are now scared that they're not going to be able to get same-sex care and spaces. Where's your compassion for us? I was a Labour Party member all my adult life. I ripped up the card and I threw it in the bin. I was raised in Labour. My dad brought me up knowing about politics, and you've let us down. Please speak to us. Please don't exclude Rosie Duffield. See it from our point of view. This is happening. This is my rebuttal. We all have compassion. This is not a hate movement. This is because we care. Women have always looked after each other and children. I'm shaking. So please, Keir, and if anybody, tweet him, write your MP, because they must listen now, because it's my family's life on the line, and it's all of our well-being. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay, who's next? Ham on. Loads of hands up. Come on.
Hi, my name's Libby. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm Orwell was right about the left. Today I'm going to talk about the GRA. Now, as we all know, it's called the Gender Recognition Act. But what it actually does is enables people to change the sex on their birth certificate. So really, it's a sex secrecy act. When this came in, there were two main reasons given. One was because there was no same-sex marriage, so people could circumvent that by men, pretending to be women, getting to marry a man. Well, obviously, we have no need for that now. We have same-sex marriage. The other main rationale for this idiotic piece of legislation was right to privacy. Not right to privacy for us women, right to privacy for men who want to claim they're women. Which really is ridiculous, because we can see they're men. How can it be private, their sex? All we've got to do is look at them, watch them move, listen to them. We know damn well who the men are. What it really is it's a right to lie. It's a right It's the right to compel others to lie, because if an official knows that somebody has a gender recognition certificate, they are not allowed to say what their real sex is. It's potentially a criminal offence if they do. So this right to privacy, it's the right to lie. It's the right to compel others to lie. It's the right to deny the evidence of our eyes and ears, which you don't get much more Orwellian than that. It's a right. It's a predator's right, is what it is. Because no decent man laughs as a woman, and no decent men use women's spaces, and it really is that simple. So this law, it's got to go. It's just nonsense upon stilts, to quote Jeremy Bentham. Nobody's sex can change in real life. It is immutable. I know some people, Lachlan what's-his-face being one of them, from his letter in The Guardian yesterday or the day before, seems to think that people with genuine gender dysphoria should get to have their birth certificates changed. Well, I'm sorry, no. Formal documents should be based on facts. And it's not only birth certificates that get changed. Prior to having a GRC, people can change the sex marker on their passport and driving licence with just, I think it costs a £5 and a letter from a doctor. Those documents can then be used as evidence in their GRC application that they're living as the sex they're not. And it's just mad. We will never get our single sex spaces back while men can legally be women. It really is that basic. There is a petition at the moment on the Parliament's website for repeal the GRA. If you're on Twitter, just search repeal the GRA and it'll all come up. Go to my bio page. I've got a link to the petition there, as have many other women. We really need to get this moving. I think if you're a TERF, if you're a women's organisation who claims to be gender critical or TERFing, you need to be supporting this petition, because if not, why not? And in the words of Kellie-Jay, if not now, when? Yeah.
If you're watching on the live stream, thank you for bearing with. It's always a bit dodgy, sketchy reception here, but we record it and then we will re-upload it. Who was next? Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. M, so Pankhurst STEM Online, but I'm not using my words today. One of my great friends, she can't make it, she'd love to be here, and I have the privilege of reading her works. So here I go. I'm Henrietta Freeman, and I tweet about the impact of gender ideology on disabled women and girls. I am a complete quadriplegic with cognitive impairments, and recently I lost most of my ability to speak. For 5 years, I was paralysed from the neck down, and I had no speech. So I know what it's like to be vulnerable. The abuse of disabled women and girls is swept under the carpet. We are twice as likely to be sexually assaulted and more likely to be raped than able-bodied women. You can understand why we would be picky over who gets to touch us. Abuse is highly likely underreported because the woman is unable to report it because of their disability or comprehend even what has happened to them. I have a loss of short-term memory, little speech, and I can't feel anything from my breasts down. Carers let themselves in when I'm in bed. If a man did something to me, I probably couldn't speak about it. I can't defend myself. I may not know, and I wouldn't feel. I would not remember for days what had happened, and then I'd struggle to communicate due to my language. And some women and girls, well, they don't have the ability to do this at all. When gender ideology took hold, my thoughts immediately shifted to the 24/7 care that I need which is intimate. And intimate means my intimate areas are touched. I've always wanted a woman to do it. This is especially personal to me as a survivor. I decided to investigate health boards and care agencies in England, and unexpectedly, the majority have switched from same-sex to same-gender policy. I am in the process of finding care providers in my area, and if I didn't know what I was looking out for, I'd have no idea of these stealth changes. Same-sex care has been destroyed in England. The Care Quality Commission, who are in charge of care, are stonewall diversity champions. Their report in 2020 found women receiving care were 3 times more likely to be victims of assault than men, and men were 4 times more likely to be the perpetrator. Thousands of allegations of sexual assault incidents were reported to the health watchdog in just 3 months in 2018, and that included 47 rapes. The CQC have the cheek to say the impact on vulnerable people and their families of such attacks is utterly devastating. Well, if they actually cared, they would crack down on agencies who are using same-gender policies. Same-sex care is simply a safeguard against abuse that some of the most vulnerable women and girls will experience. It should never be put below the feelings of men as a priority. Men's feelings are frankly irrelevant. Disabled women and girls who've lost control of so much of their lives, the little control that they had, the choice of who gets to touch them, that should be standard. A disabled woman or girl who needs intimate personal care and is a survivor of male violence, they still need care. They do not have the luxury to step away and deal with their trauma, to look at their bigotry. Every time they have intimate care, that is a reminder of their trauma, even if the care is carried out by a woman. Writing and tweeting is a challenge, and it takes it out of me. I face plenty of abuse. I brush it off because this is too important an issue, and those who can still speak in whatever way must speak out. No matter how tricky it gets for me to communicate, I will never stop telling you. There is too much at stake. Sorry. Oh, that's a thank you to me. I'll ignore that bit. So, please, let this woman speak and let all women speak.
As a reminder, I know it's really difficult to hear if you're near the back, but hopefully, whilst Let Women Speak is also about the right to be heard and the right for you to hear, we know that when you come here, you may not hear every word of every speech, but we hope, in fact, I know that however many words you hear, you will be somewhat liberated from silence just by attending. So I hope that, and we've got a new pub afterwards, so it's all going to be great. So if you can't hear, I'm sorry, but I hope that you gain something from being in a space where there's not a single person that is frightened to speak the truth. So anyway, right, next. What a fabulous scarf. Fabulous, okay.
Hello, I'm Mary from Liverpool. The first poster in Liverpool that Kellie-Jay put up, I didn't know it at the time, is right near where my father, I'm going to get upset because he's dying now and he's getting dementia. He's been really well taken care of, but it's right near there, right near where he used to live. And in the home I go and see him, it really brings the reality of the body and the aging body and the care and the love that he gets from all the carers and the intimacy. And there's something so extraordinary about that. And that kind of leads me into, because I'm one of the thoughtful therapists. we started, it was through Bev contacting different ones of us who've been finding each other, and Marcus Evans, because of what's going on in our professional organisations, where we wanted to, and nobody quite knew what was going on. And we wanted to challenge this thing called the MOU, which all links up with the conversion therapy bill. And basically, it makes therapy into a kind of oversimplified, ideological activist activity. It doesn't make it, it makes it. I heard David Bell speaking the other day. It makes it noise. It makes it noise. It's not signals. As a therapist, you work with signals. You work with what the meaning is, what someone comes and tells you. If you want to explore, you need to understand, the mystery, the shifting identities, the symbols, sorry, I've got lost here. The stories and what's gone on behind. And we're trying to therapists to really do that, because it all has to be fitted into this sort of really actually vulgar and gross. You're this and you're that, and you have to, the wishes of a child are important, but that's not the whole story. There's a lot more going on, and in making things, forcing people into things that are concrete, rather than exploring the reality and the mystery and the wonderfulness of growing up and evolving and developing. It kind of forces it into something. And of course, I want to give a big shout out to James Essex. James Essex is I remember in our first meeting of thoughtful therapists, he was saying, I think we should do a petition. And then in the following weeks, what happened to him, he was thrown off his course, he was thrown out of Childline. And it's been really hard on him. He's stoically, in his calm, thoughtful way, as a good thoughtful therapist would, he speaks, and he's not, and it's been really, it's going on and on and on. His case is still going on, so please look out for it. It will be very important, as is all these other cases. It brings it out into the open. And also there are different organisations growing up. Obviously that we link up with Transgender Trend and For Women Scotland, and there's CAN SG and SEGM. There's all these different coalitions that are building up. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, because our professional organisations are really captured. We keep trying to write to them. And we've got GETTR, we're linking up with GETTR and with GenSpect, and also another organisation called Critical Therapy Antidote that I'd really recommend. So there's lots of ones sort of building up. GETTR have done guidelines for working with people with gender distress, and we're doing a lot to try and challenge the language about all of this. So and offer low-cost therapy and support to detransitioners, and not kind of alienating detransitioners or feeling that they have to speak up for everybody, and that somehow they could almost become used in another way. They need somewhere quiet, they can be listened to, and the signals taken care of, and the grieving that they need to do. They don't need specialist therapy, they just need therapy. And I just want to say a big shout out to all the people who Posie, your riposta to Odious Jones. It's epic. It really is epic. It's a Shakespearean. It's Shakespeare, and it's so beautiful and angry, and every time I watch it makes me cry. And to Glinna and Queen's Speech, and just thank you. I go to bed with you. Thank you. That's
Well, I'm sure that's made Glinna happy that we all go to bed with him every night. Okay, who else would like to speak? Dame Stephanie Davis.
I'm really pleased to be here. It's my first time, so I'm a bit nervous. So I set up Transgender Trend in 2015. For the very reason that I know at that time, feminists, and particularly lesbian feminists, always see what's going on before everybody else, and they were speaking up about the Gender Recognition Act. but in the mainstream media, when there were all these articles I started to see about children being transitioned at age 5 in schools, there was no voice in questioning that at all. There was an occasional spokesperson who was religious, the occasional Tory politician, including David Davis, so I met with him, and that started some work going on in Parliament, which was fantastic. But there were no women speaking. Whenever there was a spokesperson just questioning it, it was a man. Usually there was no spokesperson at all. And because of the work I did at the time in schools and with parents, I was very concerned about this issue and thought, well, you know, I have to be that voice. And then I was everywhere. You could not get away from me. And, you know, I was always the one who was quoted in mainstream media and in news items, etc. But and on Newsnight with Susie Green, that was quite early on. But now I'm so thrilled, and I was thrilled when it started to happen that bit by bit more voices came, and now there are so many people speaking out, and so many organisations that have been set up. I have to say that Kellie-Jay is one of my earliest supporters and has given me such generous support all the way through. And I think these meetings are fantastic. You know, and this global superstar now that is Kellie-Jay, because I do believe that this issue is far bigger than party politics, petty issues that petty disagreements that people have. I think it affects everybody, and if you think it doesn't affect you, you just don't know yet. So I think that to put aside any other beliefs, any other status, where we're from, who we are, and just speak is the most fantastic idea. And I support any woman who establishes her own boundaries and decides where she will speak and where she won't. I thoroughly respect that. But basically, I think the more people who speak out, every single person who speaks, and whether it's in an event like this or whether it's back in your own world where we know how difficult it is because it's amongst your community and people you know, but the more people do, every time it's permission giving for somebody else to tentatively speak. So I would really encourage everybody, and I love the fact that this is happening. And so at Transgender Trend, my remit right from the start was the clinical approach to health and education, basically, and the legal status and safeguarding in those areas. And the two areas are inextricably linked. And one thing I'm very proud of with Transgender Trend is we've had such fantastic writers for us over the years. Dr. Remke, she's written for us. We've had teachers, we've had professionals, researchers. We've had fantastic school pupils writing accounts and letting us know what the reality is on the ground in schools, where there is just total indoctrination. It's moved from online into schools. This is a really serious issue in terms of what children are learning from this movement. And they're learning narcissism, they're learning how to be despots, how to bully, and they're learning how to be sort of a totalitarian, intolerant bunch of people. What we are creating, I think, is very worrying for the future, for this generation alone, who have been taught a belief in place of facts. And gender identity is a belief, and that's my starting point in everything I do. So we look at this belief. One thing we've got that has raised its head again is the conversion therapy bill. Keep an eye on that, because again, I think it could end up, or it looks, with gender identity added, is legislation for one belief above other beliefs. And how can that be lawful? The other thing I urge you to look out for is the Department for Education draft schools guidance that we've been waiting for so long. I don't know when that's going to come out now. It's in progress, but everybody must respond to that consultation when it comes out. The other side will. So my journey has been from speaking out right from the start to now. I'm a little bit more invisible. A lot of my work is behind the scenes, and I can't tell you about it. Sorry. So in my place, everybody else who's speaking out, you have my total support, and thank you for everybody who has dared to speak out along the way.
Right back in the beginning, Stephanie gave a really good lesson in being impartial, which I think not everyone is. But I think we're all better for it. We're all better when we see the human being before any of the labels or belief systems. On the school thing, I just want to. I've still not managed a meeting with my son's school. I had one back along where I started the meeting by saying, "Do you know what I do?" Which did make me feel like a bit of an idiot, but she did. But it's really peculiar because no one's saying I won't meet with you. They're just fobbing me off. And I don't know, well, they have met me. So I'm certainly going to keep going until I actually get in. But one of the things they sort of suggested along the way, and I'm sure you've had the same with your children's school, is they'll say, you can remove your child. And what you do if you remove your child and everyone else gets indoctrinated is your child becomes the ostracized kid who doesn't follow along with everyone else, and it's kind of social suicide. So I said, no, I will not remove my child. You will be fully justified in everything that you say. You will have to justify it, rather. And look, there's Chinese nationals at that school. I don't think their parents would be too happy if they understood that what we're teaching in a country like China, who definitely knows what a bloody woman is, if we then start pretending that we don't know what women are, which essentially is what this whole thing is about. It's pretending that we don't know the things that we actually know. And moreover, I think it was Cara Dansky that talked about this, and Stephanie said the same. We will have a generation of children. In fact, we've got a generation of feminist so-called activists who won't say it, who refuse to say a woman is an adult human female, who kind of think woman is an ethereal concept in a man's head. And so those dangers, they're going to be really difficult to unravel. We are very much in this corner of truth. We are very much going to need to keep our feet firmly on the ground and do not cede a second of language. Nothing is more polite to describe a woman than the word woman. And nothing is more misogynist than describe a man with any part of the word woman or any of our language. Next person. Oh, by the way, Owen Jones has not actually agreed to a debate. Owen, we'll make it 2,000. I'll even give it to a charity that I loathe and don't think should exist. Your choice. Who's next? Let it be you. Let it be you.
Delighted to see Dr. M here, Stephanie here, it's wonderful. Dr. M wrote our first ever object leaflet, which was very kind of her, and we haven't taken a word back from it. We campaign on the big picture on 5 issues, which are all linked, because while these 5 systems remain in operation, women, particularly disadvantaged women, will never be able to get a good life, make good for themselves. There are 5 systems that disadvantaged women get sucked into. Pornography, go and strut on a stage, be filmed, ruin your own personal sexual responses, and fuel the fantasies of a load of men that can't have an intimate relationship in any other way. So that's not a good idea. Prostitution, similar thing, except you're acting it out all the time. That's really not a good idea. Stand on a stage in a sex club, is that any better? No, it's not. It's all very, very bad, and women often go into these things because they need the money, They often either are beforehand or become single parents, which means they're more disadvantaged and have to struggle even more, and their children are also disadvantaged. Obviously, gender ideology is the latest thing that's come out. We had empire ideology, didn't we? My parents used to sing Rule Britannia and stand up at the national anthem. And then we had Nazi ideology. That wasn't a good idea. And then we had communist ideology. And these were very specific to parts of the world. But gender ideology is all over the world. So it's bigger and scarier and more powerful. And it takes all of us to fight it. I always bang on about the fifth system, which hasn't got very big in this country yet, but it will. And that is surrogacy. Persuading again, usually a poor woman who needs the money to have a baby for you, and all you see in the press is the cute little baby pictures. You don't hear anything of what goes on behind the scenes. And sometimes in these difficult times and these horrible issues, we have to look for very little positive signs. And I was very gratified to see Suzanne Moore in her article in the Telegraph the other day. Suzanne Moore, of course, who used to write for the Guardian and had to get out over this issue, linking the trans and the surrogacy, because the gender ideology is aiming for a generation of young people who have never had puberty, their minds haven't developed into adult judgment, their bodies haven't developed into adult hormones, they're probably not going to be able to have a full orgasm, they're not going to be able to have a child, and they are perfect fodder for all the many, many paedophiles that we know lurk at all levels and in all organisations all over the world to prey on and have what they think of is a relationship with them. And I'm sure you all saw our dear friend Peter Tatchell, I call him Pedo Tatchell, saying that he'd never said trans women are women. I think little steps, Peter, baby steps. I'm waiting for him to come out and say that he stands completely away from his comments back in the 1980s, I think it was, that it could be absolutely fine for an underage man to have a relationship with a sexually adult male. It's not okay, Peter. I have said this to him face to face, and he assured me that everything was fine. So there we are. Back to the little picture again. Got a very nice badge here. I see you all wearing lots of nice little symbols. And I wore it to my local pub the other day, and apparently a rumour's gone all around the bar stuff. Oh, there was a woman wearing a badge. Oh, who is she? Well, unfortunately, she's in there about 5 times a week, mate, and you've just started, so we'll see what happens. Lovely talking to you all.
Yes.
Hello everyone. This is not my real hair, and these are not my real glasses. And the reason I have to wear this ridiculous disguise is because if I say the very controversial thing I'm going to say next, then I will lose my job. So, okay, did you see on the picture on Twitter, the photo on Twitter of the bloke in the little skirt standing outside the school? Yeah. Did everyone see that? Okay, that bloke, he's a bloke. Okay?
We guessed.
Yeah. That's very controversial and I'm not allowed to say it. Did you all see the photo of the nice bloke with the little pink suitcase and the blonde wig? He's a bloke. Yeah. I'm not allowed to say that either, and I could lose my job if I say that in public. And the reason I'm not allowed to say it is because of a very stupid law made in 2004, which you all know is the Gender Recognition Act, which says that a bloke can change his sex. It doesn't even use those words, it's very unclear. It talks about gender. Well, they're talking about biological sex. And that law states that a man can change his biological sex, and we all know that that's not true. The Prime Minister knows it's not true, all the Labour Party know it's not true, and all the Conservative Party, they know it's not true as well. So what we'd like them to do, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, what we'd like you to do is remove that law from the statute book.
Yes. Because of the man hanging outside the school
in a little skirt. Now I want you to think, Rishi Sunak, what would you do if you saw that guy hanging outside your little girl's school? Are you going to go up to that guy and say, hello, yeah, it's brave and stunning what you're doing. Do you want to meet my daughters? Yeah, they're here. And perhaps you'd like to do some babysitting for us. No, I don't think you would, Prime Minister. I think you'd cross the road to avoid him. So if you're not prepared to embrace the consequences of your legislation under a Conservative, this was brought in under a Conservative, in the Conservative government, then that's hypocrisy and you should remove it. Okay, the other reason it's dangerous is because of also Rishi Sunak, why are you doing a U-turn on the conversion therapy ban for those except trans? Why are you doing a U-turn on that? That means you're stopping parents and anybody persuading, talking little girls out of changing their sex, which we all know is not possible anyway. It's particularly bad for little girls because, as you know, Prime Minister, they get their breasts cut off. So, Mr. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, do you want that to happen to your daughters? If your daughters, one of your little girl who you love very much, I've heard you saying that on TV, she comes up to you and says, Dad, I think I'm a boy, Dad. Okay, do you say, okay, here's a stripy t-shirt, here's a football, here's some Lego, off you go? Or do you say, all right, we'll get you on puberty blockers and you can get your breasts removed when you're 18 and you can be sterile and have lifelong medication? I don't think you'll say that either. So that is what this law, the 2004 Gender Recognition Act, encourages all that on girls especially, encourages them to think they actually can change into the legal sex of whatever sex they want to be. If it's a girl, they want to be a boy. If you remove that, there's no incentives for any of it. So it all goes. So remove the law, listen to your MPs, especially Miriam Cates, Kami Badenoch, you know, and you let Kami Badenoch send her letter to all your MPs and talk to the MPs. And are there any men left in the Conservative Party? Are there any real men in the Conservative Party? Because I thought real men protected women and children, and I thought real men stood up for what's right and stood up for factual accuracy and justice as well. And you're not, there's no Conservative men doing that as far as I can see. So can you start doing it and talking about it? In the next 18 months, we want you to say, before your time of office is over, that this statute, this law is going. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. It's such a privilege. You know, it is. People talk about white privilege. It is a privilege and an honour to be standing here among so many brave warrior women. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, look, I'm going to try and say something, and I don't fully know what I'm talking about, which anybody who knows me knows quite common, actually. But I'm going to try and say it because I think it's really important that it gets said. So, first of all, real men are men that have XY chromosomes, right? Yes. You know, I've known lots of. I'm old enough to remember the hippies. Real men dance. Real men wear silk. Real men are gay men. Real men are, you know, fabulous and can be anyway. Oh God, I've shot myself in the foot there, sisters. Anyway, so there's that, and I was happy. I was glad. I was relieved. I was confused to witness a lot of Conservative men in the Scottish Parliament standing up for women's rights. In fact, I did after that hug a Tory. I mean, if you live long enough, you see everything, right? So the thing is, what was that about? Well, as you will probably be aware, many of you, we did try to tell the MPs, the Scottish MPs, SMPs we call them, in that debate about the risks to women, the risk to girls, the risk to women with disabilities, the risk to women who are older or vulnerable in any way, the risk to lesbians, and the risk to women in the women's estate in prison, and mental hospitals and so on and so forth as well. We told them that, and what they kept coming back to us with was that there's no evidence. There's no evidence of from any of the countries where self-ID is currently law. There is no evidence of any harm. So the first thing we need to be really clear about, and unfortunately I'm not crystal clear about it myself, but the reason that there's no evidence is because they don't look for it, right? So they don't collect statistics on the rape of women by other women, right? Because apart from anything else, legally, it never used to be able to happen in this country because the rape of women in this United Kingdom depends on having a penis. And as you know, women don't have penises. No. So now, you know, I could get sidetracked here into the fact that women are involved in sexual assault. Women are often colluded into sexual assault with their partners and assaults on kids as well. And I acknowledge that, you know, but we are talking about a broad delineation between males and females, men and women, for the benefit of women and girls, for the protection of women and girls from predatory male sexual assault. Thanks very much, Janice. Don't believe her. She'll tell you her life is awful, right? Her life is not awful. She's got a really good life. Anyway, so there's that. But they kept saying there's no evidence. They refused to meet with those of us who wanted to bring evidence to them. And instead, they met with so-called women's groups who are largely funded by the Scottish government. And their funding is dependent upon them accepting diversity, right? And diversity doesn't mean including the likes of me. It means including men, right? So, you know, it is beyond belief that the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre, which is an organisation that I was at the early founding meetings of, right, all the way back 1970, whenever, 5, 6, is now run by a bloke. A CEO is a bloke called Mriddle, Mr. Mriddle. He hasn't got a GRC. So he doesn't, I don't know if he claims to, he just, anyway, don't, right. Right. And so how sad is that? How pathetic is that? Anyway, I'm getting sidelined onto that. So the thing is, there are various laws and opportunities and policies and all them words that mean stuff like that, that have come from Europe or through Europe originally, which the Scottish government is obliged to follow up on. And one of them is the fact that if there's underrepresentation of women in any field, it's a good idea to effectively have women-only shortlists, right? In this sort of Scottish civil service, I think this is right, this could be wrong, but in the Scottish civil service, they have these things called boards, right? And the boards are like groups who meet to discuss and decide on various policy issues. Now, at that point, I'm gone because that kind of bureaucratic stuff doesn't interest me at all. I find it really hard to follow it. But, you know, they have stuff like that. And one of the things that they had decided to have, in the interests of equality and fairness and everything, was women-only boards lists. Women-only shortlists to be on these boards to try and increase the number of women on them. So this is like 3 or maybe even 4 years ago now. They opened them up to men who define themselves as women. So this group in Scotland called For Women Scotland decided to take them to court. And of course that means getting money from you lovely people who haven't got a lot by the looks of you. Right? Crowdfunding, which you may remember became quite difficult as crowdfunder ditched Posie and others. And who else ditched us? Oh, there were several, weren't there? There were like about 3. that refused to let us raise money, fundraising and stuff. Nevertheless, we took them to court, right? And we lost. Do you know this? Some of you know this and some of you don't. Because let's face it, some of you are English nationalists, right? You're parochial, right? You are what we call Rump UK, right? Anyway, so this happened. And we were gutted, obviously. And we thought, well, what do? You gather your resources, you get courage calls to courage, you pull yourself together and you get up and you appeal. And you carry on, don't you? Right. And that's what we did. I should say they did, because I work in London, so technically I'm a member, but I rarely do anything, you know, basically. But anyway, we did. And we took them to court and we appealed. Does anybody know the result of the appeal? We lost. And we lost in this judgment, and it happened in December, last December, 6 weeks ago, something like that. And it was a judgment that was done by a woman called, now tell me if I got this right, Lady Haldane. Is it Haldane? Because I'm not good with names. Right. And she looked into it, and at first, my first reaction was to be really furious with her and think collaborator and stuff like that. But no, she looked into the law, right? And her judgment says, and I think this is word for word, that for all intents and purposes, right, trans women are women in law. Now you need to get that through your thick skulls. Sorry, I'm a teacher. You need to get that, and you need to go into the exam knowing that, right? Because that is the law. Now, I've been trying to talk to folk down here about it, mostly, you know, on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and you're all still harping on about how the Equalities Act is going to save us, right? Now, at this point, I lose it because I'm not a lawyer, and it's really confusing, right? But this is what you have to be really clear about, and it's not just here in TERF Island. It's internationally. There is no legal definition of woman. There is no legal definition of sex.
Is there a legal definition of trans woman?
Yeah, trans women are women. Sorry, that was just our legal definition of trans women in this country. That's according to the Gender Recognition Act, right? So this is what we're up against. And it's really important that you know that, isn't it? The other thing people ask is, I hear it quite a lot from folk, why are they doing this? You know? And there's loads of things we could talk about. We could talk about porn. Don't get me started on that. We could talk about all sorts of the pharma technical thing in America, the whole lobby and all that, right? But the aim is quite clear to those of my friends and sisters who have looked into this, who are cleverer than me. They are trying to abolish the definition of sex. They're trying to abolish sex in our world. They're trying to commodify every aspect of our bodies and our functions, our sexual functions, our reproductive functions, and obviously the care and emotional and all the other things that we do. They're trying to do that, but they're trying to get rid of sex as an actuality, as a reality. And so anyway, I think it's important that you know that, right? Oh, yeah. There are lots of men in women's prisons in Scotland. You know that, right? There's some guy who has the nerve to call himself Katie, because my name's Kate, right? And he's in prison, in the women's prison that other geezer's just been removed from. What's his name? Is it Adam Graham? Something like that. He's just been taken out of that. This guy's still in there. Now, I think there's about 12 of them, and over half of them are in there for sexual assault of some form or another. And yet, I've sat in that parliament and witnessed all these MPs, these Scottish MPs, saying that there was no evidence, of any harm, and that we were just, they didn't quite say we were hysterical. What did they say? They said we were racist, they said we were homophobic, right? Gives me a lifelong lesbian, that's news to me. And you know, they said we were right wing. And you know, some days I get desperate and I pray, and some days I hug a Tory. If they want us to be right wing, they need to carry on, right? Because right now, I am convinced that there's no way the Scottish Parliament is fit to govern an independent Scotland. And that's really, really sad. I need you to applaud it. I need you to weep, because it means that we're going to be subjected to shackle to you lot. God knows another, and we're not.
You can go.
We need a second chamber, like we have here. And I was privileged and blessed, if you like, to be at a meeting that, what's her name?
Baroness Nicholson.
Baroness Nicholson hosted just last week, was it? And it was great to see the one woman who's the head of the Labour Party in the Lords, what's her name? Hayton, saying that she, apologising to us for being, quote, late to the party, and saying that they are now very much on board with resistance to this gender ideology, and promising that she would fight tooth and nail to defend women and girls. Thank you. One more thing. Sorry. I know the bell's gone, I know it's break. Like, Posie did just another brilliant piece there on the journalists, the code of conduct for journalists. If you haven't seen that one, watch that one. And yet another breakthrough, magnificent piece. Well done. Thank you very much.
So that's Kate Graham giving her name to both Adam Graham and Kate, the other man. I feel, I'm not saying it's got anything to do with her. I'm just wondering what the coincidence is. But yes, the IPSO thing, we've been, lots of us involved in this have talked about the IPSO thing for quite some time. I just felt it was necessary to talk about it again, because often just little things happen and you're watching something, and I was on, I think, GB News, and they interviewed some people in Scotland, and they were all like, well, actually, there's a man stood next to a woman, and the man's going, yeah, well, I think she should go to a woman's wing, and we have to look after her, and the woman literally is like that. Just thinking, what on earth is he on about? I'm pretty sure she didn't agree. I wish she was interviewed and not him, because her voice is much more important when it comes to who we should be listening to, about who should be in a woman's prison. So, who else? Come on, and then you. This lady first. Lovely, thank you.
Where are we? Yes.
You're right to camera here, love.
Right. I am the first class biology degree
Louder.
biology teacher since 1968. My full name is Alison Wren. You may remember me from your biology class in 1973 in Australia, maybe, or Cambridge, London, Bristol, lots of places. And I'm here to be the teacher you all hate, because they give you red pen and they give you red marks on your work because you've done something wrong. We are actually supposed to now, because red is very triggering. But you all love that teacher, because when you get your A grade in your GCSE or your A level, woo, she picked you up. So I've got a little biology homily about conception and fertilization.
You're going to have to really project as much as you can.
Is it not
No,
coming through?
they can hear you.
They can
These
hear me.
people can't
You hear me. Right, I did look up conception, because people keep saying sex is determined conception. It's been in use since the 14th century, and its use is to get pregnant. But I did look up Merriam-Webster and a few other dictionaries,
And I did look up a legal thing which says the ambiguous meaning of human conception. 227 pages, 10 pages on the science and all the rest on the law. And Merriam-Webster says to become pregnant. So I just wanted to talk about the becoming pregnant, because people do make mistakes. They also make the mistake of saying that all fetuses are female until 3 months in the womb, which is total bollocks. Get it? Never say that. So the whole process is this little egg pops out of the ovary, size of a stop. Every one of you here has come from a little cell the size of a full stop. All of you, every single one of you. Oh, yes, you have. Oh, yes, you have. Sperm comes along. Most of us, an egg-bearing sperm got there first. Yay, female. The rest, Y-bearing sperm got there. Actually, the Y-bearing sperms get there first because they're a bit lighter, because they've got less DNA. The Y chromosome is a sort of truncated bit of an egg. In fact, men have more DNA in common with male chimpanzees than they do with female humans. Because it is the same in all mammals. This is how it works. So there we are, egg gets fertilized right up near the ovary. It takes 5 days to get down to the womb, settle in the endometrium. In that 5 days, that little full stop is no longer one cell, it's hundreds, and they've organized themselves into this amazing circle with a little bit there that's going to become the baby. All the rest of it is going to go along, and it puts up fingers into the lining of the womb 5 days after fertilization, chucks out HCG, which is what you test for with a pregnancy test. And that is made over the first 3 months. If you do a pregnancy test when you're 6 months pregnant, it'll be negative. So, get on with it. If you want to know, do it in the first 3 months because it will be negative. So that is how we all got here. And so please, can we not say that sex is determined at conception? Because it is a long process. 5-6 days of it is what conception is, that whole becoming pregnant. The sex is when the X-bearing sperm gets there, or the Y-bearing sperm, and that's it. And in fact, a good half of those fertilized eggs never implant. So the woman's pregnant, even though that little embryo up there is a boy or a girl. But that's all I wanted to say. People still say it, but then I want to put the red pen. No, fertilization, and we all know what fertilization is. It's true of all sexual reproduction. It's when the male gamete gets the female gamete, joins with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bring your hateful organisation. Made famous recently.
Won't say anymore. Hi, my name is Bernadette, and I'm
No, behind. So you don't get muddy shoes.
yeah. Hi, my name is Bernadette, and I'm part of Women's Declaration International. Women's Declaration International is a non-party political organisation, and basically sign the declaration and we're all on the same page. We all know what we're talking about. We all know that women's rights should be based on our sex as per CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of the Discrimination of Violence Against Women, Discrimination Against Women. Look at me, I'm as bad as other people. The reason I'm here is just to kind of back up. I wasn't actually going to speak, but just to back up what Kate was saying about evidence. If you haven't been on our YouTube channel, it doesn't have as many subscribers as it really should, because it is a global representation of what is happening where self-ID is in law, where self-ID is being sneaked in. And there are stories from women. And recently, which is why I'm here, just to mention this, last week we had a woman talking about what's happening in Belgium where they have self-ID. Please watch that video. 20 minutes of your life, you will realise how bad this can get. So please write to your MP. There's loads to write about. We haven't got the money, but at least we can have the voices. So will I get elected, or am I going to go to a nice dinner? Let's make it that not being elected is actually something that they're thinking about when they are making decisions. So the YouTube video is no data, no problem, the dangers of Belgium self-ID laws, and that's on the Women's Declaration International YouTube channel. I also wanted, just quickly, to so this is Lady Halliday's judgment in Scotland, so that you can all just listen to this. So, the meaning of sex for the purpose of the 2010 Act, sex is, and in quotes, sex is not limited to biological or birth sex, but includes those in possession of a GRC obtained in accordance with the 2004 Act, stating their acquired gender and thus their sex. So this is the case law against having a bloke who says he's a woman in a shortlist for women's candidacy, I think, for something. So the case law has been made for that. All right, so every woman here in law services, you are the same as a man who says he's a woman. Now, at the moment, it's not quite in the UK, because if a man just rocks up and says he's a woman, he has the predicted characteristic of gender reassignment. If he gets if he gets through self-ID, through no process, just goes on the internet in between conviction and sentencing and says that he is a woman, he's got the piece of paper. His sex marker then for this country means that he is treated the same as biological women. This is what we have to stop, for goodness sake. Women, because of our need for privacy, dignity, and the violence. I mean, sorry men, not all men, but it is men. Yeah. There are 90-odd, 80,000 men in prison, most of them for violent crimes. There are 4,000 women in prison, most of them because they haven't paid a bill. In Scotland, there are 400 women in prison. 400 women, you chuck one bloke in there, that's a lot of people. So stop thinking this is, it's happening now. Please be angry. Please write to your MPs, and please sign the declaration. Thank you.
Who doesn't have a right? Bloody love it. It's about time, Bernadette, to be honest. She's always so reasonable. Come on. Right, that'd be great.
Hi, I haven't really prepared anything, but my name's Emma, and up until recently I was in the Green Party, but I've just been expelled. So, yeah, so obviously I'm a terrible TERF, that's why they've kicked me out. But it's quite funny, it must be a bit of an abusive relationship because I'm trying to get back in, you know. And I do feel it is an abusive relationship because I kind of feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time, not knowing what to say, always kind of self-censoring, and this is what it's like, and this is what feels abusive about it, because even now I'm still self-censoring even though they've kicked me out. But I wanted to say a couple of things because I do feel like it's on a bit of a turn, isn't it? We're having a good day, despite everything else that's gone on. And on Twitter, I've sort of seen a few Green Party people sort of saying, oh, well, maybe they've got a point, you know. And one of them was Baroness Jenny Jones. And what happened was a lot of people attacked Jenny Jones. And I'm going to say I fundamentally disagree with Jenny Jones about this issue. But I admire the fact that at least she came on there and said, perhaps I need to rethink this. And I want to make sure that when people do that, even though we are kind of really angry and going,
They should have been there 3, 4, 5 years ago. I want them to be able to kind of come back. I don't want them to be piled on. It would be so satisfying to go, we are so angry. You've been giving us this rubbish for years. Have some of it back. But I don't want to do that. We need to let them come back. But they better blooming do it, because the other Green Party leaders, the ones that have actually put in the complaints that got me expelled, a few months ago, anything about trans, they would have been all over it. Oh, poor trans women, blah, 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 blah. Silence. Where are they now? Where are they? Because they're blooming cowards. And if they want to come back from this, they better start speaking up. But I will also say, I was trying to think about this, because I always kind of think on this hand, on the other hand, on this hand, on the other hand. And I was thinking about how it is difficult to be sure of yourself sometimes. Now, I'm sure of myself on this. I know what a woman is. I know that a man is not a woman. But there's other areas where I'm not so sure, and I defer to people. And one of those that I was thinking about is critical race theory. Now, that's mixed up a bit with some of this social justice stuff, and I'm a lot less sure about that, because I'm kind of thinking, but I am a white privileged woman, and where do I stand on this? And I know this is going to get everyone going like, well, I'm a right winger, but everyone already thinks that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And I can see myself deferring and not being sure and going, I will just check with my black friends, because some of my friends are black, you know. Obviously, that proves I'm a right winger, isn't it? And so I can understand why people were looking at this and going, well, I'm not trans, I don't know, I'll defer. I'll ask them. I'll follow their opinion. So it gives me a bit of kind of forgiveness, a bit of understanding in that. But, you know, my understanding and forgiveness is not going to extend to those abusers in the Green Party. And I will also say about the right wing and being right wing and everything like that is one of the things I think is it's taken people like Jenny and other people so long to kind of find out what we're talking about. It's because they refuse to listen, because there's this kind of thing of, I'm not listening to you, I'm not listening to you, as if you're some kind of keeping yourself in some purity spiral. Well, actually, I absolutely listen to people I disagree with. I listened to Posie's interview with Carl Benjamin. I fundamentally disagree with Carl Benjamin. I think some of the things that he says are atrocious, but I only know that I think they're atrocious because I listen to him. And I cannot understand why you would not listen to the people you disagree with. So I think that's it. That's good. Yeah, and maybe if Sean Berry had listened a while ago, she wouldn't be so blooming speechless now, because she's lost for words now. And so, you know, come on. So really, let's celebrate where we're going. We are going somewhere with this. Let's be magnanimous and let people come back, but be blooming sure that we hold them to account and make sure if they're silent on this now, then they need to kind of step up, and we're not going to forgive them for much longer.
Owen Jones is difficult to listen to though, for all manner of reasons. I've heard him, but all I hear is it's like that mosquito that you can hear but you can't see. Where's Hermione? Are you coming? If you haven't seen Frankie Last's impression of Hermione and talking about pronouns, you really have missed out, because it is amazing. You talk like her far too easily.
I know, it's quite scary. It was most of my childhood. All right. Yeah. So, if you don't know, I'm Frankie. I'm 21. I'm a student. I'm doing a journalism degree. Sorry, if you don't know me, I'm Frankie. I'm 21. I'm doing a journalism degree, so pretty co-opted profession. I'm at university, so it's quite full on. And yeah, so I wrote to my MP recently. Through circumstance, I'm both gay and autistic, and obviously you attract your tribe. So a lot of my friends have grown up to be. Consequently, a lot of people I know are the prime targets of this quite vicious ideology. that is harming people. I wrote to my MP bearing this in mind because I have a vested interest. I wrote an impassioned email. It was very polite, it was cordial, and it was backed up by facts. And her response was appalling. It was very much copy and paste. I cross-referenced it with friends who have sent similar letters to MPs, and they assured me that so much of this was very much the same spiel. It was copy and paste. How an MP can respond to a 21-year-old young woman who actually has been very honest, earnest, and actually quite empathetic towards people with whom she disagrees, I do not know. I do not understand how a politician who claims to be, you know, across the aisle, listening to what people say, can just disregard what her constituents say and expect to be elected again. That's what I do not understand. Now, I made a decision at some point last year just to say what I thought and to be honest and not to fib and not to be quiet, just to say it like it is. And I came to the conclusion that a lot of people don't actually believe the things that they're saying. It's a brilliant way of utilising the tools that the culture has given them to settle old scores and to bollock people they think deserve good bollocking. And actually, that happened to me last night, and it was horrible. And I'm fortunate in that it's not that I don't care what people think of me, but unless it affects me, someone else's thoughts towards me, unless it affects my life, why should I give a damn? And why should I, if it's not harming anybody, change it for the sake of other people thinking, oh, isn't she nice or isn't she a cow? But last night it was a friend's special occasion, and a mutual friend decided that I was awful and that I was a horrible bigot, and that actually telling me that I was revolting was more important than our mutual friend. And I think that's the concerning thing about this ideology. It gives people the tools to say, you're a racist, and I'm going to back it up because you're a TERF. I think the greatest thing that she said to me last night was, she's a TERF, she calls herself it, she admits it herself. How can you be friends with people? That's disgusting. I was sort of standing there and go, you know, you don't want to be patronising. But you're sort of there and you're like, I'm quite calm, and maybe I ought not to be. But if I lash out, then I'm proving you right. It's a catch-22. If you're calm, you look a bit like a sociopath. Which obviously I don't want to do. No. These are really hard. I've got it a lot easier than a lot of people. My poor best mate was there, really uncomfortable, knowing full well that he agrees with me far more than her. The absolute irony of it is this morning, he turned around to me, I don't think she agreed with any of the things she was actually saying. She, you know, obviously the things that she'd been saying, she brought up prisons herself. Earlier on in the day, and I was going, yeah, so I thought it was safe territory. It was only when we started getting to children that she started to say, actually, that sterility and being aorgasmic was a decent trade-off for children. She thought it. She genuinely, honestly, and earnestly believed these things to be true. And that was what I found so concerning. That was what I could not fathom how anybody could trade off somebody else's ability to have some adult response to some sexual stimuli. It's not hers, you know, she's not trading off her own orgasms. She's trading off the orgasms of young, predominantly gay and autistic children. That is something that affects me. A child grows into an adult. You know, children, they are not children forever. Why should their parents, with certain gender clinics, make decisions that impact their whole lives when they don't need to be made? And what she said to that was, yes, but what if they don't pass when they're older? You're not going to accept them when they don't pass when they're older? Well, no, I'm not going to accept them as women, but if a bloke wants to wear something, I might think he looks daft. I'd much rather that than an entire generation of young people who a massive part of their life as a human, so, you know, something that we all share in common, and rather most people, that's off limits to them. That's never going to be there. I don't think any person has the right, unless it's in case of saving someone from death, to decide that for another person. It's not what you are willing, you know, to speak up for. It's whom. These are real people. I've got a slightly more than one. Hang on a minute. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that was it, really. But anyway, yeah.
weird, isn't it, when you stand and have a conversation with someone who says such nonsensical things? But the beauty of this place right now is that nobody in this crowd is going to say the things that need to be said. So I'm going to say them out loud. Women don't have penises. No man has a vagina. Shocking stuff. Transitioning children is profound abuse. Rather, we should call it mutilating children. And I know there are some people, even people with massive platforms, who think you shouldn't be able to say it. But it is mutilation. And the reason I use such language is to talk about the reality of what it is. It's not to offend those that have done it. I don't think my words, using the word mutilation, makes the harm that they've done in the name of transgender ideology actually makes it any better or worse. Their bodies are still irreversibly damaged. What else do we want to say? Non-binary is nonsensical. I was reading in Ipsos, so I think this was 2016, they used the word non-binary in the Ipsos guidance, well, the Independent Press Regulation Authority, Society, whatever it is, it's not independent at all. It's really weird. I think that's what the big thing about all of this is, not that there's some crazy people out there who genuinely think they can be born in the wrong body. It's that sensible, boring, sensible people and organisations have gone along with it. Yep. It's the fact that when you want to talk about it, when you want to read about it, the press is captured, the police are captured, the NHS is captured, and we might have celebrated the closing of the Tavistock, but now what we've got is less a place where you can't pull the results, where we don't know what's going on because it's gone out local, and we know that the government has actually put aside money to be able to cope with over 200 phalloplasties in just one hospital within 1 year. And part of that money is not just consultants, part of that money goes to a tissue specialist, and the specialisation of that tissue specialist is because some tissue doesn't heal. So that will be necrosis, that will be phalloplasty. In the United States of America, one of the growing areas of finance for surgeons is trying to repair the irreparable damage done by phalloplasty. So it'll be a second, a third, a fourth. One girl, so she was celebrating with tears because she just peed standing up when she left the hospital after over a year with 31 corrective surgeries. Jesus. Part of those corrections was to stop her urinating out of her anus. So we are talking about gruesome, really Frankenstein's monster type surgeries that these surgeons know don't work, and we're going to be paying for those through our tax money, through the NHS. And that's at the Chelsea in Westminster. And one of the amazing callers to TERF Talk Tuesday talked about it. She's done loads of freedom of information. So if you're looking for that data, it's in black and white on the freedom of information request site. You can find it. I think it's They Work For You or We Work For You. What do they know? Okay, who's next? Anyone? Yes. You come.
Okay, my name's Anna. I'm just going to get straight into it. I am so overwhelmed by the gender ideology movement, and I'm so angry and anxious. Every day I open up Twitter and something else has happened. There's a man in Essex identifying as a schoolgirl standing outside a school, and the police say he's not a threat. Lloyd Russell Moyle getting angry at Miriam Pace for speaking up for women in Parliament. The man that flashed his penis on TV has won a comedy award. In Arizona, in the USA, a man enters women's changing rooms in a gym and stares at women's breasts. The cops already know of him and are doing nothing. There's already another man whinging in the USA because a female-only gym told him he wasn't allowed in. In fact, there's many creepy men demanding to be let into women's facilities and playing the victim card when they're told no. Let's get this straight, they are not vulnerable. Women and children are the vulnerable ones. There's a tribute page to a paedophile drag queen that was murdered in Cardiff. The signs held at a protest in Scotland calling for women to be decapitated. A rapist in Scotland turns up to court wearing a wig and lipstick with his penis showing through his leggings, and we're told he's going to a women's prison. The media refer to him as she and say when he was a man. Let's be clear, he's still a man and will always be a man. And can you believe that there's people that feel sympathy for this rapist and hope he gets to transition safely? There's some sick people out there. I don't know about you, but I feel overwhelmed. Where are women's support groups for this barrage of coercion and gaslighting? Men get to have their support groups and they get to post them in community centres. Do you see many flyers for women-only support groups? Because I don't. Even when you find a women-only group online, you have no idea what their definition of a woman is. And a lot of these groups make a point of saying they're inclusive and that anyone with hateful views will be removed. So that most likely means that women that understand biology and know that men can't be women won't be tolerated. The toll this takes on women is heavy, and I really worry about what the future holds for women and girls in such a captured and brainwashed society. We need to fix this, if not for ourselves, then for the next generation of women and girls. I'm going to finish with the words of the MP Sally Ann Hart, who said, "It is right that the UK government seeks to enforce the Equality Act to ensure that women, including lesbians, can live free from male or state coercion. We must protect women and girls' rights. We have spent so long fighting for them." Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Yes. Lovely t-shirt. If you're still waiting to speak, just put your hand up a bit higher. I've got a relatively good memory for this.
Oh, yeah, that is my right hand, isn't it? Oh, I'm so cold.
Oh, it's Nicholas Sturt. No, it's just any old.
Right, we'll get there. Right, okay. Oh, right.
Ready.
Okay. So, this afternoon, the trans-identifying Mr. Punch has come to show he's got a fabulous new job in the NHS. He has now developed the science of clairvoyance. And he has a detector in his medical bag here that can tell you if you've been born in the wrong body. Hang on. This fine medical device divines your gender. Oops, hold it properly. Here we go. And no expense spared by the NHS. There is a gender reveal. Now, can I have a volunteer to take part in some experiment? Even if you think you have no gender, the science of gender ideology will prove through clairvoyance that you do. Anyone willing to try it? Oh, no. Okay, Mr. Punch would like just to turn around. Okay. Ooh. Medically trained, this sausage, you know. Ooh, it's a real medical device. Okay, I think he has a diagnosis. Says it's coming. It's nearly coming. Here it comes. Oh, definitely. I'm sorry to tell you, you're a man trapped in a woman's body. Urgent medical attention. Yep. You definitely have to take the advice of a medically trained professional. You mustn't doubt the science. get yourself sorted right away. Right, so we now know that biology is a load of hokum, and clairvoyance is the new science in the NHS. But I have one thing to say to you, Mr. Punch, and your medically trained sausage. A woman is never a man in a dress. We'll have ideology out the NHS. Thank you very much.
There was someone over there with a hand up. Yes. That lady with a cat.
The oldest dog in the UK, or one of them, is definitely the oldest dog in Yorkshire. He's 20 years old now. So he's been by my side all the time. 1 minute, let me just yeah, his 20th birthday party in January. Right. Let me just get my little notes up because I'm quite ill prepared. I wanted to speak at the Glasgow event when I was a bit more prepared. I've come down from Leeds, so I'm a bit late, but I've been listening to you while I've been down, and I am treated. I work as a process engineer. In fact, actually, first I'm going to take this jacket off because it's blazing with the logo where I work. I've got the mic here. Oh, oh shit, sorry. Oh, I. Have to clip it onto my mask.
Oh. Just took it off that Halifax jacket.
Yeah. Highly doubt it was going to say. Anyway, so I start this with I've had numerous altercations online with people what the definition of a woman is. And may I also say that you are an inspiration, absolute inspiration, because you really do. The definition of woman, that is what it is, right? And so I'm told that I'm asked by a woman, may I also say, this is online, what is a proper woman? So that my definition to her was XX chromosomes, adult human female. I was told to go back to year 7 and learn biology. This is a woman telling me this. Ultimately, I don't know all the ins and outs legally in terms of the gender bill. But what I do know is that in the census, 0.5%, less than 0.5% of people identified as trans. And it's probably significantly higher for men wanting to be women than women wanting to be men. And we know this through multiple studies, that it is overly, almost 50% more higher for men to want to transgender to become women than the other way. And so I ask, why are we pandering to this 0.5%, yeah? When we've got 51% of us women, yeah? It's absolutely infuriating me, and I'm absolutely boiling my blood over it. I found some interesting information through doing my access, but as I've been able to, as I've got university degree, I can go through past papers, right? And even it comes down to the point of past lives. Past lives could be an influence, could be influencing what these children are feeling or what these people are feeling. This is a psychological problem. When did we start to say a divide that a woman is not a woman, pure non-biology, because of how we feel? It is absolutely idiocratic and insane, right? I'm a scientist, a process engineer by trade, and it is just ludicrous. I would urge you, if any of you, none of you have watched Matt Walsh, What is a Woman? If you want to watch that documentary, that will give you the fundamental concept, right, to argue back against a woke individual, because they will have no comeback to you. Watch this documentary, Matt Walsh, What is a Woman? And I wanted to say as well that I watched recently the last program that you had done, Kelly, and I saw that this guy had mentioned about transplanting ovaries into women. Sorry, into men, right? Fundamentally, right, that is completely wrong, but we have to remember that women actually have their bone structure has been made so that they can actually pass a baby, right? How many anti-rejection medication would you have to take to accept said ovaries? Not to mention a uterus and a vagina. On top of that, this is absolutely insane. And I'm sorry, but I had to come down here to London, and I will be here at Glasgow to voice these concerns. My final thing is Tavistock. Have we not learned of the travesties of Tavistock? It's madness. People are now suing the NHS. This is our taxpayers' money that we have paid. This should be a private affair. It is utterly, and I am so happy to meet every one of you, and I'm more than happy to, if anyone's got any issues, please come and chat to me, because I want to learn more about this, because I want more ammo for my agenda to fire other people, how this is affecting people personally. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to get a few things off my chest. Womanhood is not a hormone level or a feeling in a man's head. Trans lesbians are straight men. Transitioning children is abuse. Men don't belong in women's prisons, toilets, refuges, changing rooms, or ponds. And non-binary is nonsense. When we were in Cardiff, I spoke with a young man who called himself non-binary and his mum. The conversation didn't go all that well, as you can imagine. I called him a man. He didn't like that. I said he was deluded. He didn't like that either. He kept shaking his little leather necklace in my face, which was quite funny. Unfortunately, I'm not very good at thinking on my feet, and I was quite exasperated by this big young man towering above me in his purple dungarees, being all offended at being called a man. And I didn't say all the things I wish now I had said to him. So I'll say them now. Dear Mr. They Them from Cardiff, I want you to know that I don't hate you, and I don't deny your existence or think you're not valid. I just think you're a man. I admire your commitment to gender non-conformity, but I would admire it more and respect you more if you had the balls to call yourself what you are, a gender non-conforming man. You look very young, and I hope that when you grow out of this silly non-binary phase, you will still be proudly gender non-conforming, and that you will live a long, happy life as the man that you very clearly are. But I didn't say that, and it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. I bet he's been going around ever since, moaning about the hateful TERF who called him a deluded man. And I bet most people, even though they might commiserate to his face, agree privately with the hateful TERF. Even his mum privately agrees with the hateful TERF, because she introduced him as her son. Quickly corrected herself. To his mum, I wish I'd said, please, please, please stop supporting your son in his delusion. You're not helping him. You think you're being kind, but you're not. You're lying to him. You're lying to yourself, and you don't even believe your own lies. Please really be kind to your son and help him to accept that what he is, a gender non-conforming man. But Mr. They, Them, at least, is likely to come out of this delusion mostly unharmed, with only the embarrassment of ever having denied his own sex reality to look back on, perhaps to make a joke of when he's mature enough. If it was only people like him caught up in this ideology, perhaps I wouldn't care so much about all this, and I would just have a good laugh about the whole ridiculous thing. But when I think about the many children caught up in this dangerous nonsense, who might not escape serious harm and will have to live with ravaged bodies that have not been allowed to develop normally, about the poor women locked up with rapists with no hope of escape, about the young female athletes whose dreams are dashed when a man steals their trophies, about the elderly woman in hospital unable to say no to the male carer in a wig and a dress, about young girls forced to accept porn-sick boys in all their private spaces. I remember why I come here every month, why I fight this ideology, and why this is my hill to die on, and why I will never surrender.
Who was next? Somebody did have their hand up. No, are we done? Yes, you. Yes. Is that all right there? Yeah?
Hello, I'm Nonika and I'm a middle-aged poet, artist, and my experience is that I've had to
Can I just interrupt you? Just one moment. Just one moment. If you're having a chat, it's lovely. What a beautiful social occasion. But if you are having a chat, can you just step back a little bit? Because people do want to hear the people talking, and I know it's a bit of a struggle.
I'm a middle-aged poet who's been mouthing off around the poetry scene for years. I've recently had to shut up, and I've stopped going because I can't say what I want to say, and it's the first time in my life I've actually been silenced. So I'm really grateful to all of you at the WDI and Posie Parker for doing this, and I'm going to share this poem, and I hope you like it. It's called Move Over Darling. I will not cede my womanhood, though you beat me half to death. I will not cede my womanhood, though you stifle every breath. I will not cede my womanhood, though you smother me with lies. I will not cede my womanhood, though you will not see me with your own eyes. I will not cede my womanhood, though you dress it up in gender. I will not cede my womanhood to apologists or pretenders. I will not cede my womanhood. I will live it as I choose. I will not cede my womanhood. It is not for men to use for any purpose or define that which I might. I will not cede my womanhood. I demand my sex-based rights.
Any other woman? Yes. Oh, hi. Nice to meet you. Let me pin this on. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Pam Spur. I had a horrible cold and I lost my voice. But let me tell you, I have now not lost my voice over women's rights. 30 years ago, I went online, supported JK, horrible trolling, and I, to my embarrassment, backed down. I have 3 little granddaughters now, and I have found my voice, and the support I've had has been amazing. Thank you so much. And the more people will find their voice, people tell me in my direct messages, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't have the I don't have the guts to come out. We've got to support those people coming out. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get that? Okay. Any other woman? Yes.
Off camera.
Cameras are both there and there.
Yeah. I'll stand here.
Yeah.
Right, I don't want to be on camera because as some of you seen, I've been here before. I'm a teacher, I'm a school governor. I cannot afford to lose my job or fight the nonsense, even though I know I'm on the right. And I've obviously got children that are under my care, and I don't want them to feel that they can't come and speak to me if they need to. But I wanted to speak today because of the health aspect. Prior to lockdown, I was really, really ill. I was in hospital for a month and I needed intimate care. Now, even though I was already aware of the problem, you don't really realise it until you're in that situation when you need somebody to wash you, clean you, change your underwear, change your, do all of those things that you cannot do. And that really brought it home to me because otherwise, I'm pretty much okay. I'm not going to go to prison, I hope, anytime soon. yes, I see the problem with children in schools, but I didn't think it would be such an issue if I was in care and lucid enough to be aware of what was going on around me. So I just wanted to highlight this. If you think it's not going to affect me, and I think about some of my friends who I'd spoken to, and they said, oh, you know, what's it got to do with you? Why are you so bothered? Don't you know you could lose your job? Why is it such an issue? It's such an issue because people did not speak about it when they first heard it. It's like people have forgotten their minds when we see people that are literal perverts and we've just forgotten all about it. Cross-dressers have not left. They're still here. They've just been rebranded. Yes. And I want people to just say it. Say it how you see it. We are literally in a fantasy world and it's just driving me crazy. Yeah.
My name's Bev, I'm from Cambridgeshire, and I'd just like to thank Kellie-Jay for having, in her words, a big mouth and putting on these events and sort of like wider events as well. I'm not a narrator, I'm not an academic, I'm not a writer, I'm just a bod like most of you. And it's just like, well, what can I do? So my thing is, I've linked up with a couple of other groups, and so it's getting involved, going out, but sometimes you can't always go out with other people because they can't always do it at the time that you can do it, or they're scared to do it, or they're afraid to do it. And I sometimes think we just need to find our courage sometimes. So I've gone and done a poster and stood outside Primark for 2 hours on my own. I've gone into my local town and just stood there on my own because the threats frightened the other women off. And actually, it was fine, because the bullies didn't come out into their own town, and it was market day, so a lot of market was there. But I'm just thinking, you know, if you can't do it on your own, with groups, look at the risks and sometimes do it on your own, because it's worth it. Because what you find is there's lots of people out there that maybe have a little bit of awareness of this fight, but they don't have masses of awareness, and they don't know that we're out there. They don't know that people are fighting for it. And I think go out, buy a pack of leaflets, shove them through the door. It takes an hour to get 200 through a door if the door houses are close together. But do it. You know, it's the only way that people will do it is by getting out and talk. You can talk amongst yourselves, you can go on Twitter, and it's a waste of fucking time. Go and do something. Get out there and talk to people. It really makes a difference.
Okay, any other women?
I'm Sue. So, hello. I'm going to be really quick. I'm going to say, Vicky, I think it was earlier, said we need to have compassion for people. We absolutely do. We need to have compassion for kids.
Yeah.
Yes. Part of compassion is not putting them on end-stage cancer drugs.
Yeah.
Those drugs are licensed for end-stage prostate cancer. They're licensed for preoperative fibroids, and they're licensed for endometriosis for 6 months.
Yeah.
No longer. They're also licensed in kids, and they are. They've been using kids for decades, and they have, for central precocious puberty only, not for a feeling, because it's a soul. We've gone back to the 1600s and spectral evidence. It's rubbish. So with compassion, yes, have compassion for people who think they're in the wrong body, but have compassion for yourself, because every time a man is sitting in your changing room or your daughter's changing room, where's the compassion for her? Yeah. Self-preservation is not right-wing bigotry.
Any other woman? Yes.
Yeah, a previous speaker said, why are we pandering to a small fraction of 1% of the population? Well, it's because our institutions have been captured at the top. If you notice, education, NHS, all the institutions, BBC, everything has been captured by these people. And we are now in the place of the French resistance. It's too late to protect our institutions. They've been captured. We now have to get these people out. And we must not allow legislation to superglue this in place, as in Canada and some states in America. We must get the Gender Recognition Act repealed.
Right, any other woman? Any other woman? Anyone with a penis? If you have a penis and also
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm self-employed, so I can't be fired. Yes, I decided to fire myself. Well, I'm sorry, but I wish to apologise on behalf of men for not giving you the support that you richly deserve. But might ask for a little round of applause for somebody who's here, who I know has made great financial and personal sacrifices, which is Graham Linnett. I'm further thinking of him because my news feed just was about to come out. There's a prisoner in Scottish prison now who is not only self-identifying as a woman, but is self-identifying as a baby. And isn't that just like in Father Ted, the episode with the spider baby? just as Father Dougal, when the fair came to Craggy Island, wasn't quite sure that a baby might not actually be a spider. So the prison guards of Scotland aren't quite sure that a sex offender who likes wearing dresses might not actually be a baby, because they're buying him rusks and formula and stuff, so they've got nappies. Unbelievable. Anyway, I shan't keep you long as I'm a man, but just one positive thought. History repeats itself because it has to, because they weren't listening the first time. 400 years ago, Galileo was being persecuted by the Catholic Church because a simple scientific truth, that the Earth goes around the sun and not the other way, robbed people of a comforting fantasy. The comforting fantasy, which the Catholic Church wanted to maintain, was that humans are at the centre of the universe. It's terribly comforting to think that we're at the centre. And it's a much more comforting view than the idea that we're on a little rock and we're wandering through space and it doesn't matter what happens to us. It's exactly the same situation now. The simple scientific truth is a man's a man and a woman's a woman. We all know that, really. But the comforting fantasy is, you can choose what gender to be. So anyway, the truth is indestructible, as the Buddhists say, and we will win, not only because Kellie-Jay Keen never loses, but because the truth is the truth. And I hope my trans woman friend Anna doesn't get to see this. She's a very nice she is a very nice person.
I don't want to compare your speech, but it's he! Anyone else? Penis or no penis? Anything else? Do we need to do a genital check?
Can I pick who's going to do it? Hi everyone, Happy New Year, and thank you Nicola Sturgeon for turning this into such a big thing that it is now on the front pages of almost every newspaper, in every supermarket, and every stand you can see. I feel so angry. Okay, never mind. Just with everything that's going on, and somebody earlier said I feel so overwhelmed, and there's so much going on every day. There's something new. But one thing I just wanted to say is, trans rights are human rights? No, they're not. It's a lie. Why? Because we're not talking about rights, we're talking about privileges and demands. Yes. Secondly, trans itself is a pack of lies. Yes. Whenever we're dealing with trans rights, we're dealing with betrayal and deceit and lies. And why was this bloke with his balls on display even put temporarily into a women's prison. Not Nicola Sturgeon, somebody called James Morton. Do we know James Morton? So this is a woman who LARPs around as a man, set up or used to be the manager for 13 years of the Scottish Trans Alliance. For 13 years, she's been pushing this shit out into the prison system, into schools, into the Scottish NHS. She's done this on purpose. It was strategic. They started with the women in prison first. They used these women, which are one of the most vulnerable women in society. Many of them have, oh, you know this.
Carry on, because not everyone knows.
They're in there because they couldn't pay a bill, because they're poor, because they just want to provide for their children, because they're trying to get away from abuse and sexual assault. They're trying to get away from men. Many of them have had head injuries. They're in that space and they can't even there get away from men. Even the sound of a man's voice can trigger them because a lot of them are traumatized. This woman, James, goes, ooh, let's pick that group of women, because when we can convince others that men should be allowed to join them, then we can convince it everywhere. It's like a really twisted, sinister version of the New York song. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It is dark. What is it based on? Lies, deceit, and betrayal. And in this case, that was spearheaded by a woman who obviously hated herself enough that she had to do all that to her own body and then sell out women across the board. When you think, it's just crazy. It is crazy. The whole thing is fucking crazy. And I'm sorry if that's not eloquent, but that's what it is. And all these organizations, fucking Mermaid, fucking Stonewall, fucking Scottish Trans Alliance, they are rotten to the core. Why? Because the whole fucking thing is lies. And I've had enough. Little update from the Netherlands, where they're discussing self-ID. They've discussed it in Parliament in September, and it's coming back in February. In Holland, it's much worse than here. People have been able to change their birth certificate since 1985. You have to change your birth certificate before you can change any other papers. So it's different from here, right? It all starts with the birth certificate. When you change it, you get a note on it. So it doesn't say that your original birth wasn't your birth. Because think about it. If you change your birth certificate, it's no longer a birth certificate. For fuck's sake! Oh! And I'm not trying to play alpha male here. I'm just fucking angry. Anyways, at least in 1985, you had to go through surgeries and hormone treatment before you could change your birth certificate. In 2014, that changed. What also happened in 2014, James Morton got the Scottish Prison Service to prioritise gender identity. So whenever you look at these dates, there's always parallels in other countries. It's all happening at the same time. So from 2014, the Dutch law changed, so you can change your birth certificate without any surgeries, without any hormone treatment. Why? Because then gender identity becomes, it takes center stage. So since 2014, in the Netherlands, there is no legal distinction whatsoever between you and me claiming I'm a lady. There is no legal distinction. I don't know how many people know this in the Netherlands. I doubt that many people do. So I'm doing a video on it in Dutch, which I'll put out before it comes back to Parliament. So people go, what? What the hell? We also have an Equality Act equivalent that has sex as a protected characteristic. But they've just included gender identity and differences of sex development and whatever else. But it's not a separate category. Like here, at least we have gender reassignment and sex. But in the Netherlands, gender identity is sex. Oh, God. There's no distinction. So now you can't even talk about it because then you're guilty of discrimination. So we had a situation where you have a bloke with magical lady feels goes to the sports centre. Oh, ladies' changing room. Can I go in? A staff member said, no, because you have a dick. Now, I'm paraphrasing. But apparently, they knew this. Now, in Holland, we have a great expression that if someone's really annoyed, for example, if you're really annoyed, I would say, oh, did somebody step on your dick? I didn't make it up, but it's funny. So, obviously, this bloke with the magical lady fields wasn't impressed that he wasn't allowed into the changing room. So he felt like somebody stepped on his dick and he complained. Sports Centre says, well, look, you need to have the surgery first, then you can go in. But that's not required under the law. So Men with Magical Lady Fields goes to like an equality watchdog in the Netherlands. And this is what they said. They did not say a transgender woman was discriminated against on the basis of her gender identity. They said a woman was discriminated against by not being allowed to go into the woman's changing room on the basis of her female sex. This is a man with a dick! Ah! I know I don't rant well as well as you do, but for fuck's sake, stop this nonsense!
I think someone stepped on his dick. Anyone else? Anyone else? I will round off. When the cameras are off, I will tell you the pub that we are going to. It's a new one, so don't walk to the old one. I think it's now Mayfair Apartments. You won't get in. No, we've been banned. They're closing it. Okay, I don't think because of us. Well, the stick rings probably didn't count, to be fair. Please don't stick at the new pub. Jesus H. Christ. Please do not stick at a pub that invites us in. Okay. It's after an event like this, if it's your first time, you might feel emboldened. You might feel a little bit liberated. You might feel like you can just go into work and say, they're men, not me. You may feel like that. You should feel like that. But if there are tangible things that you really want to do, speak up. Be the person that cracks the silence in your staff meeting or in your place of work. I promise you, you won't be alone. You might be the first to say it, but you certainly won't be the last. Certainly if you work with people over the age of 30, you won't be the last. Be the teacher in the staff room that says no. You might not want to say that you know that they're men, but you might say that you're not telling kids, you're not gaslighting children. And actually, I think it's your duty at this point to say no. I think if you're in the NHS and you know that men are men and women are women, I think it's your duty now to say the truth. I think being silent is not an option. Being silent is complicity. I think if you work in a space where there are vulnerable people, whether they're male, female, children, whoever they are, I think the time to be silent is over. I think if you feel brave enough and bold enough and you've got 4 meetings a year to spare, join your local council. Be a counsellor. That's how these covert paedophiles and predatory men have got away with this for so long. They occupy our spaces. They sit in a room and the conversation changes. Even if that room is full of women who know that they're perverts, they can no longer say it because there's one of them sat in the room who will report you. We have teachers in the staff room who have designed the guidance that gets them in the women's toilets and changing room and gets boys in with girls. We've got those teachers still teaching, celebrated. They gaslight children every day, forcing them to call them miss. We've got men who are head nurses on psychiatric wards, female-only wards. What was the first thing he did? What's his name? I think his name was Dave. Let's just stick to Dave. Dave who dresses up in PVC nurses' fetish wear on his nights out. He became the head nurse on a women's acute psychiatric ward. That means women who've gone through trauma and have extreme psychosis. The first thing he did with his job is he moved his office down to where those women sleep. And when he was on, during COVID, he was on a Zoom call with 3 other women who also ran similar wards. He told them that and they praised him. Not one of them thought, hang on a minute, Dave. You moved yourself onto a ward where women who have been victims of extreme male violence sleep. Oh, no. They were like, oh, that's so great. He didn't even speak like a nurse. He had a proper blokey, like, man's voice. I like put my bloody bed on the ward. It's just, like, it's comical until you understand that in that ward, and we all know somebody, way back, she had acute psychosis. She thought she was going to be murdered by men, including her own husband and son. When she went onto the hospital ward and had a man next to her who she knew to be a man, so did all the women on that ward. When she complained about it, she was recorded in her notes as a transphobic bigot by nurses on that ward. Years later, she called me and she said, you know the man they just arrested with 80,000 images of child rape? That was the man on my ward. So, we know this. We know that if a man has a paraphilia of dressing as a woman, the most likely cross paraphilia is paedophilia. We know that these men have multiple paraphilias. They don't ever stop at one. If you feel afraid and you feel uncomfortable when a man dressed as a woman is in front of you, you're damn right, and you listen to it. You don't explain it away. He must have had a hard life. It must be so difficult for him to not have to dress as a woman and walk about as a woman, but choose to. There is nothing hard about it. The compulsion is a fetish. There is nothing else going on there. Trust your instincts every single time. If you can stand next to somebody, you know pretty much everything else you will disagree, then I promise we will win. If you can brave freezing cold in London and even more cold in Glasgow, and you can stand and you can speak loudly even if your voice shakes, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Because I never lose.